What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of Best Bets for UFC Seattle Adesanya versus Pyfer, where I'll be discussing the most confident picks, the lock of the week, the underdog of the week, and some parlays that I like. The odds for these fighters have been blowing up, so I got to get this video out quickly. Starting with the most confident picks, we got Alexa Tainara, Larry Douglas, and Michael Chiesa. Starting off with Tainara. This is a rematch from 2019 where Bruna, she won by submission, her opponent. But Thanar was only 21 years old back then. She's improved a lot since then. She's now on an 11-fight win streak. And she's 2-0 in the UFC and has looked sharp with strong grappling and pressure. Bruna Brazil has been really inconsistent in the UFC. She tends to struggle when facing adversity. While she does have some solid kickboxing and uses her length well, she often fades when opponents push the pace. Thainar's aggressive style, her pressure, and grappling should allow her to close the distance here, control the fight, and potentially find a finish on Bruna Brazil. So I think Tainara, she has a chip on her shoulder now. She's going to get her revenge with the pressure and the grappling. Moving on to Larry Douglas versus Julian Erosa. At first glance, it looked like veteran versus newcomer, but Larry Douglas is legit. I believe in his style. I believe in his power. He's on a 5-fight win streak right now, and he's looked like an absolute assassin, especially on the contender series, where he scored a clean one-shot knockout with patience and precision. Erosa, he's experienced, but he's really inconsistent. And at 36 years old now, he's been knocked out multiple times. He's dangerous with submissions, but his striking is chaotic and it leaves him open. Douglas is a sharper, more composed striker with real power and momentum. If this stays on the feet, he should land the cleaner shots and overwhelm Erosa. So I'm picking Larry Douglas. He's the more sharper, more dangerous, more precise sniper shooter. And he's on the rise while his opponent, what's his name? Erosa, he's fading right now, right? While Larian looks like he's just coming into his prime. Moving on to Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa versus Nico Price. Both guys, they are out of their prime, but Chiesa looks like the more reliable fighter right now. He's on a 3-fight win streak and has been facing better competition, while Nico is 2-6 in his last 8 fights and struggles when facing solid opponents. And now he's taking this on 5 days notice or whatever it is. Price, he brings chaos and unorthodox striking every time he comes into the cage. But that style hasn't been working lately. Chiesa should be the more composed fighter, able to avoid the brawls, use his size in the clinch, and mix in some takedowns, right? If this hits the ground, Chiesa has a clear advantage with his grappling and his control. So I'm picking Chiesa. He's just been more consistent, and he's going to be more technical here, and he has the much better grappling. So moving on to lock of the week, we got Navajo Sterling. Navajo Sterling is one of the top prospects right now, undefeated, improving every fight, and coming off of a strong win over Bellato. He's well-rounded, he's tough, has elite striking, and he's from City Kickboxing, training with Adesanya. Bruno Lopez, his opponent, has some power, but he's been knocked out before, and he will likely need to rely on clinch control or grinding against the fence to win this fight. The problem is closing the distance on Navajo is a really dangerous task. Sterling should have the edge in the striking, in the reach as well, and he's got great takedown defense. If he keeps it standing, he'll likely outclass Lopez with cleaner shots and higher volume. So I'm picking Navajo Sterling to just be more technical, be more complete, and control the fight, being the more well-rounded fighter. Moving on to underdog of the week, we got Kyle Nelson. Former underdog of the week, came through for us last time as an underdog, and I'm sure he'll come through again here as well. Kyle Nelson, he's in great form. He's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's coming off of dominant wins where he's looked sharp, composed, and well-rounded. Terrence McKinney is a fast starter, but he fades quickly. If he doesn't get an early finish, he usually gets finished himself, right? So Nelson, he has the striking, distance management, and durability to survive that early burst and take over as the fight goes on. So I'm going to say Kyle Nelson survives the early storm and then just breaks McKinney down right after that. So, moving on to the parlay section. Look, the odds for this fight have been blowing up. So, I'm gonna try to start getting these videos out quicker. More like Wednesday mornings. But starting off with the safety lock, Navajo, Tainara, Chiesa. You guys know how rare it is for me to do a 3-leg for a safety lock, but every time I've done a 3-leg, for a safety log, it's always come through. I've never missed a 3-leg safety parlay, and this week won't be any different. So it is 3 legs, but it's a solid safety parlay. It's built on reliable styles. Navajo Sterling has the striking and overall skill gap advantage in his matchup. Thainara brings pressure and grappling to control her matchup, and Chiesa has the edge with technicality and grappling against a chaotic opponent like Nico Price. All three have clear paths without needing anything fluky to win, right? I got it at minus 160, but right now it's probably minus 170, minus 180 even. So that's on me for not getting the video out earlier, right? Moving on to the iron lock. This is some solid value here. I do believe in Adesanya and Larian Douglas. Larian Douglas, he's the sharper, more dangerous striker against Erosa. While Adesanya is the more technical and experienced fighter in the main event, I feel like both guys should control the striking exchanges and dictate their fights. At plus 125, I do see this coming through. Moving on to the affordable juice section, Ricky Simone and Chase Hooper plus 140. This is where the value starts to rise. This should be stylistically a big wrestling heavy parlay. Ricky Simone's wrestling pressure can neutralize Giannis's boxing and still hang with Giannis on the feet. And Chase Hooper has a big grappling and size advantage here in most of his matchups, like he usually does. If both impose their game plans, they can control the fight and secure the wins here. So moving on to the 4 most confident picks parlay: Navajo, Thainara, Chiesa, and Larian plus 115. This is a clean 4-leg stack of fighters with strong advantages. Navajo and Larian should win on the feet. Thainara brings pressure and grappling. Chiesa has the edge in control and technicality. All 4 have clear paths to victory here. It should come through. At plus 220, Mansour Abdul Malik and Gabriela Fernandez, the fun duo parlay. It's good upside here. Mansour, he is explosive and dangerous everywhere with great fight IQ, with great wrestling. I feel he's a more well-rounded fighter. I think he's a smart fighter. I know he'll implement a solid game plan here against a dangerous opponent like Yusri Balgori. While Gabriela Fernandez, she has the strength, the physicality, the striking, and grappling defense to take over her fight here. Both are capable, Mansour and Gabriela, of creating big moments and having the bigger moments in their fights. So moving on to Underdog City. Kyle Nelson plus Marcin Tybura at plus 395. This is a high risk parlay, high reward play. Nelson has the style to survive early and take over late, while Tybura, he brings veteran experience and the strength in a heavyweight fight where anything can happen, right? If both weather early danger, this parlay can cash big. I do see both of them coming through. So that does conclude this week's best bets for UFC Seattle. Hope you guys found this helpful. Till next time, peace.